So I'm going to say a few things about how time was measured in ancient India. I'm using the word reckoning. Reckoning could mean counting also. And later on, some kinds of measurement should also be needed. There's a difference, particularly when you come to time, between these two terms. As we go through the talk, you will know what I mean about it. If we say what is time, it's a peculiar question because all of us understand what is time. We all know, and it is self-evident. Yes, that is all true. But how do you define time? If you press on that question, it becomes philosophical, and you get into so many new issues, which of course modern physicists have expanded in their own ways. For example, the history of time by Hawkins and others, they keep on discussing these things. In ancient India also there were similar things. The philosophers discussed about time, and in this talk I will not go into the philosophical issues, but limit myself only to a few specific, what I would call characterizations of time, or you may call reckoning or counting, and some measuring some particular time units. How in ancient India they were doing. Today how we do, we all know. Either use your mobile, or use your stopwatch, or use any such instrument, and then try to relate it to some other standard thing from Greenwich time or some other universal time, and you can synchronize and all that. But in the ancient time, what were they doing? Because we had a very high level of sophisticated astronomical methods and mathematical methods developed in this country, including differential calculus 300 years before Newton started it. Because you know that the infinite series were all developed in a village in Kerala called the Sagamagrama. It's on the west coast, connected with Dakshina Kannada actually. And that was the region where all this was developed. It was very sophisticated. Now, some of the typical time units, I have listed them here. Ahoratra. Now, this typically means day-night. But generally, we use the word only day. That would mean night also is included. Then there are Paksha, there is a Masa, then Samvatsara, there are Ayana, Rutu, Nakshatra, Tithi, Muhurta, Ghatika, Vigatika. These are some of the words which are there. And I will try to rush through what these mean. There should be some very standard or a strong empirical basis for this. How was that developed is the question. The second thing is about what is ancient. I said about India we all understand. I will not say what it means. But what is ancient, some description may be needed. So in the context of India, if you see, the ancient things, the most ancient thing which is known, by that I mean as knowledge, is about the Indus Valley civilization. The cities which have been unearthed in the Rajasthan, Kutch region, namely, Dholavira, Mohenjo-daro, Harappa. Mohenjo-daro, Harappa is in present-day Pakistan, that doesn't matter. And then there are several other cities. Lotha, if some of you have seen this, you would be wonderstruck by the town planning and the geometry that was used in those places. And these all go back to about 2000 BC to 3000 BC. Now today we are in, you can say 2000 CE. It will be about 5000 years back. That's way back, far way back. The date has been established scientifically. It is not due to any other emotional arguments, but it is purely based on modern day science. How are they measuring time? Unfortunately, we have no idea. What was their calendar? We have no idea. But on the other hand, we have large number of texts which are available in this country. Sanskrit texts particularly, generally called the Vedas, so to say the oldest one being the Vedas. There are structures within the Vedas. I will not be able to go into those details here. The Samhitas, you have the Brahmanas, we have the Aranyakas, we have the Upanishads, and we have the Shloka Sutra, Kriti Sutra. Up to that, at least, is called the Vedic text. There are at least about 250 to 300 large size texts which are available, which are transmitted orally up to about 500 BC or so. And later on, some people took the trouble when script was introduced on the manuscripts. And the manuscripts continued, and then only recently in the last 100 to 200 years, some of these have been printed. The remaining things are still in manuscript form, or they are orally learned in the Veda Pathshalas. So you can see there are Veda Pathshalas even today, Vedic schools, where they learn by memory, by rote. They don't look into books, they don't write. Only by memory, they learn so many books for about 10 years, 12 years. They will be able to repeat it. That is how our knowledge, the Indian knowledge, if you say the fundamental thing, the most ancient thing, has been brought forward. Now, later on, of course, from the Gupta period or even from the period of Gautama Buddha and Mahavir Jaina, that is around 500, 600 BC, script became important and people started writing also. I will not go into those details. An enormous number of books are available. It is said that unpublished manuscripts are about 5 million in this country. No other country has that many unpublished manuscript books. What they are is a different question, which are remaining. So our interest has been looking into manuscripts, looking into ancient things, how did they study, and what was the, how we can interpret it in a modern way. This is the subject that we work in the Center for Ancient History and Culture in Jain University. One of the questions was how time was being measured. That was our question. So that is briefly I'm going to present that. All the ancient texts refer to time. That is called Kala. Kala is the same word all of us use all over India in the same sense. Kala is also used to refer to black or something unknown or something dark also is there, and also to Rudra or Ishvara. It's all separate things. But Kala as a technical word means time. Now, some information is available in various details in the later books, that is in the Siddhantic astronomy books. Siddhantic astronomy are the books which develop mathematical astronomy from about 400 or 300 AD. And the first one, which is very well known, is by Aryabhata. Aryabhata was in 500 AD, 499 AD. Later on, there are at least about 20 Siddhantas available. Coming up to almost 19th century, people were writing. They discussed these problems in their own way. However, the words which were used in the most ancient time, they may be used even now, but their meanings have changed. Meanings could have changed. For example, in the Puranas, there is a question about Chatur Yuga. Yuga is a Kali Yuga, is some 86 lakh years and things of that kind. Whereas in a text called Vedanta Jyotisha, a Yuga means only 5 years. So the meaning of Yuga also has changed, and we have to be careful about all these words and also about the measurements associated with them. We naturally recognize, all of us, change that is, recognize change that is time. Change and time are almost interchangeable in terms of movements of visible objects. The most prominent being sun and moon. None would escape this. Even the people in the forest or in the tribal people or the most primitive people, they can't escape sun and moon. And both of them, they seem to be moving. And this was the starting point in our country also, at least as we see in the Vedic text. So a very specific statement occurs in one of the texts called the Maitrayani Aranyaka. To reading may be very difficult. What I will show here, there are two forms for Brahma. Brahma, you simply assume whatever it may be God, maybe Paramatma, maybe something unknown. There are two forms for him. One is called Kala, the other is called Akala. So there are two forms. Kala and Akala. And he also defines before Aditya, Prag Aditya, before sun, whatever was there, it is Akala. Whatever came after sun, after the Srishti of sun or birth of sun or the knowledge for me to see the sun, you may take it the way you like it, is Kala. Kala means what? It has Kala. Kala means divisions. So Kala has divisions, whereas the Akala, before the birth of sun, before the creation of sun, it is all Akala. There is no division of time. That is the meaning of the sentence. And it goes further. Then there is one more statement here. I'm just putting these two together to bring to show you the method of reckoning in those days and the theories which are there. This is a highly philosophical issue because cosmogony comes into picture. You may say the solar system was born for 4 billion years ago. The sun's age today, what this physicist says, about 4.3 billion years and all that. They did not say those things, at least in this book. The Puranas say the Chakshushmanvantara, sun was created. You calculate, it comes to about 4.2 billion years. Actually, Sagan says in his physics book, it is only the Hindus who have estimated at least or imagined such large time which matches with modern concepts of creation or of the solar system. Now, in another place, the question comes up. We see so much in this world, we see around us, where all this is born. Asya sarvasya yoni, where is it born, is asked. The answer is here. It is all, Anyatra yuktam annamvasya sarvasya yoni. It is all born due to food. But where is food born? It says Kala, it is born in Kala. And where is Kala born? It is Surya Yonihi Kalasya. It is the same thing what I said previously. Time is known only through sun, there is nothing else. How it is done? It is through the movement of sun, it says, and immediately next it says, it is the movement of sun from one, of course, east to west, what we see. That is the daily thing. The other one is from north to south. Many of us might not have seriously thought about the north to south and the south to north. But that was the fundamental in ancient India. They are called the Ayana. This is, we are not bothered about the modern way of interpreting that sun is fixed and the earth rotates about with obliquity. Right? The effects may be felt, but the theory or the reasons might not have been known even in those days. But he clearly says there are two Ayanas. And the two ayana, one is going to be hot, the other one is cold. So in other words, what they are doing, I will show you a figure, then it may be clear. You observe sun, and this is the sky, the dome. Forget about this for a time being. Person is here, he observes sun, sun rises here. This is north in the horizon. And every day you keep on observing sun, where he rises, keeps on shifting. And then one day you would see, after about 6 months, he is found in the south end. We all, if you observe even in Bengaluru, the rising will be there. This would happen in December 21st. That is known today as the civil calendar. And then again, from south, keeps on drifting, and it goes to the north. This is what they call the ayana. There are two ayanas, north to south and south to north. And that is samvatsara. That is 1 year. If you come back to the same point, the sun comes back to the same point, that is 1 year. And how was that known? You simply count the sunrise. How many times sun has risen? 365 times he has risen, or maybe 366. They say it is 366. That is what is generally taken. But there are some Vedic texts which say, take it as 365, it's a little bit short. Take it as 366, it is a little bit long. So it would have been somewhere in between is what they say. Sun will come to the same position like that. But in any case, this kind of reckoning is today called the tropical year. That is with reference to the solstitial points. That is the southern colure and the northern colure. This is what was practiced in the most ancient time. And this would happen the southernmost point when sun has reached. The Uttarayana starts. That is the Uttarayana Prarambha is even today very important, even though the dates which are given in the Panchanga is wrong. It is not January 14, it is December 21st, even today. And they knew that very well. There are so many other things associated with it. They started the new year on that day, or very near 1 or plus or minus 2 days. And then even the sacrifices, all those started the Vedic practices only from the Uttarayana point. This is one thing. The other one, so you can say sunrise to sunrise is 1 ahoratra. This is a fundamental unit. It is always from sunrise to sunrise. Even today it is like that. Civil calendar, sunrise to sunrise takes 24 hours, 1 day. And this was taken later on, you would see, as 30 muhurta. That muhurta concept is already in the Rig Veda. They said 1 ahoratra is 30 units. Why 30 units? We'll come to that later if time permits. So that is what I have put up here. And 1 ayana value will be 183 days. Even in the Vedanga text, this is 1 ayana is taken equal to 183 days. So in the morning sky, we see only the sun. But in the night sky, it's more picturesque, and you can observe so many other objects also. Moon, the nakshatras, maybe the planets and all that. Moon is the dominant object what anybody can observe, and it's easy to observe. And that's also moving. And hence, the concept of masa comes from moon, or the month comes from moon. Moon means only the month maker, or month means that is from the moon. Both are together. Even in India, it is the same thing. In Tamil, you would say Kannada also Tingalu. Tingalu is nothing but Tingal. Tingal is the name for moon. Even in Tamil as well as in Kannada. So it's always linked with that. So the interesting thing with moon is that you can again measure something from full moon to full moon. You keep on observing full moon to full moon. How do you observe? Full moon rises in the east. When full moon is happening, sun is setting in the west. But not always together. Sometimes it happens. For about 3 months you may observe. Sometimes sun has already set. Or maybe sun has not yet set, but the moon has set. These things are possible. But this was measured, or this is counted or reckoned. How? With the sunrise also. Sunrise you can do, or sunset also you can do. Both the ways you can count, either set to set or rise to rise. But sunrise to sunrise is the common system. So when the moon rises, you would see sun is setting. So there is a half day difference. Because if sun had risen, it would have been 29th day or the 28th day or the 30th day. That is how you would count. But he is setting, what you do? On that day he had risen, it was 29th. That day evening, moon rose, sun is setting. So for sun, it is 29 and half. Or sometimes it may be the other way around. It may be 30 already, and then only Purnima has occurred. So this count is not an integer. Sun, that is nothing else. Sun himself is an integer. So you keep on counting 1, 2, 3, 4, nothing more than that. Even if he rises some other time, you count it as only 1. It is not the light, it is only the rise of the sun. That's what I am telling you. And hence, they had to make a choice. This number varies, either it is 29 or 30. For convenience, it is easy to have 30 as the number instead of 29. But please note, if sun is setting in the evening and when the moon is rising, the number of days should be a fraction of nearly half. Okay? As the ahas or the day, it has to be half day, you have to say. You can't say if you count it with sun, the number of rises of sun, it will be 29 and half, or 28 and half, or 30 and half, like that only. Now, these people wanted an integer for easy calculation. They selected 30. But they knew that it is not 30 day actually, it is 29 and some day. Because day means are the above authorized with reference to sun only. So what is the relation between sun and moon? They had to establish. They gave a new name for that. Yes, full moon to full moon, we take it as a month. That is what modern people would call a synodic month, or a lunation to lune. It's a synodic month. We call it 30 tithi. We don't call it 30 hour. It is not. If you want solar days, it is nearly 29.5. So they took it as 29.5 days or 30 tithi. So the origin of tithi, you can see, is from here. So it won't be equal, it will be slightly varying. The length of that tithi will be varying because you have to divide it and then distribute it to all the places. Modern calculation of tithi is slightly different. What they will do is, there has to be a 12-degree variation between sun and moon is what they take. Because 12 into 15 is going to be equal to 180 and sun and moon are opposing. So 12-degree difference, you can take it as the tithi. The interesting thing with moon, why ancients picked up moon, was that moon increases and decreases. It is not that every day like sun you see a full circle of brightness. The shade keeps on decreasing, and one day totally vanishes. That is the Amavasya day. Vanish means you can't see that. There is an Amavasya day. This has to be brought into unison. So in the modern days, all this has been done in a different way. That is the Siddhantic astronomers. So in present day tithi calculation is more along the mathematical lines, not along the ancient lines. And this is not the only cycle with moon. Moon has several things. Its brightness increasing, decreasing is one thing. But full moon to full moon, why should I observe? But when I observe, there are some other objects, hundreds of objects there, called nakshatras. Because moon is very near some of these stars. What are the nakshatras? And what happens to the nakshatras? I have put a figure here. It's a modern figure which you have developed. See, this one is the dark phase. Somewhere here is the Amavasya. Then the moon size keeps on increasing. And again it becomes dark. For about 14 or 15 days, it's going to be Krishna Paksha for nearly 14 to 15 days, it will be the Shukla Paksha. And in each case, it is somewhere a nakshatra. I will tell you what is a nakshatra here in this figure. Very interesting happens. The moon comes back to the same nakshatra, not after 29 days or 30 days. But since you have observed full moon to full moon, you are observing with which nakshatra the full moon occurs. I start with, let me say, Chitra nakshatra. It's called Spika in modern. It's a very bright star called Chaitra Purnima. Where the Karaga occurs in Bengaluru, it's called Chitra Purnima in Dhaka. And you go for the next Purnima, it is not near Chitra. It has come to Chitra 2 days before. 27th day it comes to that nakshatra Chitra. So there is one more cycle here. So every nearly 27 days, moon comes to the same nakshatra, to the same position. That means a circle, a 360 degrees it does. And that is called the sidereal cycle. And that is called the nakshatra masa in Sanskrit. And some texts use this. We will not go into that. That's an important thing. How is it done? This is Earth, this is Moon. Moon, you know, is a satellite to the Earth. As it moves, what is the star you can observe? And that is going to be the nakshatra for that. So this is a short cycle, something like 1 month. Whereas for Sun we have seen 2 ayanas are needed 366 days. Whereas here there are 2 different numbers which come up. The 27.3 to be precise, and another 29.5. The play of these 3 has developed the whole Indian calendar actually, in the background of the nakshatra. The nakshatras are fixed. So nakshatra is like a coordinate. And the concept of nakshatra is a very important thing, it's very typically Indian, and it goes back to the Vedic period. But we say today there are 27 nakshatras. No, the stars, the nakshatras may be 27, but the number of stars in this group is 86. Each nakshatra is not a single nakshatra. Today, of course, there are so many new changes have been done. I will not go into those things. That is why we have a difference between the ancient kind of things and the modern astrology and all that. That is a separate matter altogether. And these nakshatra figures, how are they identified in terms of the numbers and also the figure it makes. For example, even today we have what is called Mrigashira. Mrigashira looks like head of a deer. So they identified Mrigashira nakshatra as having 3 stars like this. It has to be identified. Kritika, we simply say Kritika nakshatra, but Kritika group has 7 stars. And it looks like a knife. Krit means in Sanskrit cut. It looks like a cleaver or a knife. And that is how the names were given for this on the 27th. I'll show you a table a few minutes later. Now, if you take for the moon, the 29.5, 27.3, and find out the beat period. As engineers, when there are 2 cycles which are there, but we all do this exercise. And what you get is 366 days. You remember, both were measured in days. 29.5 also was an Avaratra. 27.3 or 27 or somewhere near that was also in Avaratra. And hence, if full moon occurs in a particular nakshatra, and if full moon has to occur in the same nakshatra, it needs about 365 to 366 days. I hope you get the point. Full moon to full moon will not occur in the same nakshatra. If it is nakshatra to nakshatra, it will not be full moon. But both have to combine is what we are asking. It is nearly 1 year. So even the measurement in the earliest days might have been done with full moon. Later on, of course, full moon was given up. Later on, Amavasya was taken as the starting point. That is another matter. As sophistication comes up, mathematical sophistication, there are new things which are introduced. But full moon is a very important thing. Even today, in some of the North Indian states, the month starts with full moon, not with Amavasya as it is done in the south. This south calculation is influenced by the sun calculation. This is the Sauramana, whereas this is the Chandramana. We'll see the difference in a minute for that also. So these numbers, note from the most ancient period, are approximate, of course, they are approximate. And they are subjected to observational errors. That is because the orbit of Earth and Moon around the Sun is in elliptical orbit. It increases, decreases, and all kinds of things happen. The Siddharthic astronomers were able to handle it because they had the degree system and circle as a 360 degrees. These people initially they struggled with 365, 366 only. But then there were improvements. I'm talking from about 3000 BC to about 500 BC. So you can see about 2000 years, there have been already improvements which have come up. So I am presenting somewhere in between. You can say 1500 BC or 2000 BC, how they might have done the things is what I am explaining to you. Yeah, this I already said. Now, Sun may be said to be associated with the nakshatra also. Why only moon? Because you observe moon in the night, of course everything is clear. If you simply observe sun in the mid-noon or so, afternoon, you don't see anything else other than the sun. But if you are intelligent enough, you can observe sun in the early morning. You can't observe sun directly, but you know where sun has risen in the previous day, and nearly there if you see early morning, there are some stars which are rising, and sun will be very near that. Within a few minutes, sun comes up. This statement is there already in a text called the Taittiriya Brahmana. And that is called, they wanted to know what is the solar nakshatra. Can sun also be associated with a nakshatra like moon is there? Yes, it is possible. They already understood that. And the solar nakshatra if you use, then sun is said to be with a nakshatra for about 12 to 14 days. Because sun comes back to the same nakshatra again after 1 year, nearly 365 or 366 days. And if that happens, you simply divide by 27, you simply get about 13 days also. Many of the Vedic texts says sun is with a nakshatra for 13 days, sometimes 12 days, sometimes 14 days kind of thing. And this is a great leap, that is to look at sun and then decide the time. Because as I said in the beginning itself, it was always the Maitrani Aranika acid said, sun is the reason for time, not moon. Moon for local purposes, simple purposes, for our purposes you may use it. But the real reason is sun. Even for moon, sun is the reason. That is the meaning. So they have struggled to look at sun in various ways, religiously, philosophically, and directly observing, and they came to the conclusion that sun also will be with a nakshatra, or I can give such a definition. Now, what is this nakshatra? Nakshatra are the objects which you see. One. Second is, it is a time. It is a time in which moon spends in that stretch. So this way of looking at time has come up in the transition period between the Vedanta Jyotisha and the other texts. Otherwise, it would have been simply looking at the nakshatra and telling, today moon is in this nakshatra, to visibly see that. Ancient astrology was like that. They were not doing horoscope calculation. They would see which nakshatra moon associated in the sky, and then, if at all you want to make any prediction, it was based on that. Now, let me go further. Why can't we use moon itself? Suppose I use moon for calculating the year, what is going to happen. That correction will be needed. That also they worked out. If you want to say religiously, I want to use only moon, what is wrong in it? Yes, you can do. But you have to make adjustment for a very particular thing. That is for food and agriculture and for rainfall purposes. Because a season depends on sun and not on moon. The ritus, as we showed in the ayana, there are 6 ritus totally, 3 ritus in one ayana. It is only the felt season. Ritu means it is something which repeats, is a rhythm. The rhythm occurs every 1 year. Rainfall occurs once in, you can say, ayana, once in a year. And then again, that remains for about 2 months, like that. All over the world, people recognize the felt season. Here also they recognize that, like very hot, very cold, kind of thing. And they clearly divided into 6. Reason may be you have 2 ayanas, better to have 6. Again, you can see the trick there, the number trick. It is 366, and 30 is the number you are having for moon. If I can have 12 into 30, I will get very nearly a year, 360 or 365. So, and practically also, 2 months were correct. So rainfall even today we will say it is for June, July, even though the monsoon we say it extends up to September. Later text also said rainfall is possible for 4 months, even in India. If you take 4 months as the unit, they had that also. That is called the Chaturmasya division. The whole year is divided into 4, 4, 4. It is 3 divisions. 3 they had, even today they observe Chaturmasya, as you know. But many of the people, the sannyasis observe only for 2 months, even though they call it a Chaturmasya. Yeah, these are different reasons, but Chaturmasya was there. I will not go into that. That became very fossilized now, it became ritualistic, not so much to do with astronomy or time measure. But season has remained to this day. Ritus have remained to this day. Spring and Shishir Ritu, Hemant Ritu. Even in our local languages, poets all use these things. Sharad Ritu. These are all there. So very much in vogue. So we have to understand that. So if you take the seasons, then between the moon and the sun there is going to be a problem. If you take 12 months as the synodic month, you get 29.5 to 12. That will be 354 days. 354 solar days. It is always with reference to sun and time. It may be 360 Tithi, that is different. But it's 354 days. Whereas for sun, it needs 365. There is a 11-day gap in every year. Now, if 11-day gap, within about 3 years, it becomes 1 month. And within another 3 years, it becomes 2 months and the season is gone. You expect it is spring, but it is already summer or something. This change occurs. In fact, in the Islamic calendar, they don't do this adjustment. So that is why you keep on repeating, it comes in, the festivals come during different months and different seasons. Here they did not want it because they wanted to know the rainfall occurs, when it occurs. It has to be strict. That is why Varsha Ritu and the name Varsha. Varsha means year. Even today Varsha means year, right? Even in our language, Varsha means year. So Nama Varsha we say, new year. So that Varsha was with reference to rainfall. They synchronize that. And if they had to do it, how do they do? You can add each for lunar year. If you are following the lunar year, 11 days you have to add. Adding 11 becomes difficult. They will say, okay, I will wait for 3 cycles. As in the third year, I will add 1 month. 3 into 11, nearly 30. 30 days I will add. Vedanta Jyotisha, which belongs to about 1400 BC, gives this method of Adhikamasa. This is the Adhikamasa correction. Now the present Adhikamasa correction is different. Varaha Mihira has introduced in 5th century AD a new system. That is what is followed in the Panchangas, in some of them. There are alternate methods obviously available, because you start with sun as the basic thing. Then you can have only 12 months. You don't need an Adhikamasa at all if you are following a Savrama. Like, in Tamil Nadu, in Bengal, they don't need. But we all belong to some virtual culture where it was moon which predominated our cultural activities. So even though we may follow a Savramana and we don't need an Adhikamasa, some rituals are not done in the Adhikamasa. And the Adhikamasa was considered a polluted month. So the the usual belief that the number 13 is bad is not a Western concept. Number 13 being polluted is a Vedic concept. That 13 being polluted is because of the Adhikamasa. So Adhikamasa has to be added. If it is not there, you have to introduce it specially. And that is the meaning for that. Now, this intercalation was also done. And then, quickly we will go further. You can as well have sun as the basis. That is the Savramana. You can observe sun also with some of the nakshatras, but a new concept comes in. And a new difficulty actually comes in. The advantage of the new difficulty is that if you understand it, if you know they reckoned time using sun, then I can find out when was that done. In the past, 1000 years before, 2000 years before, or 3000 years before. That is because today we know a very important issue of how to click this. I have to click here. Or I have to go back to the video.
Yes, sir.
How do we do that?
Escape, sir.
Can you help me? It is there, it is loaded, I know. If you can go to the desktop, I can do. Or you can go to the folder, I will show. If you click it, it should get on.
Minimize
Minimize mode. Yeah, even other click button. Oh, I don't know whether it is built into show that video. It's a short video. Okay, it is running. Yeah. So this is about the rotation of Earth. The central thing is what we see here is Earth. Yeah, this is Earth. This is Sun, what today we call ecliptic. And you can see the intersection points are what are today called equinoxes. And as time passes, there is a phenomenon called precession which comes into picture. So there are 3 cycles important for Earth as we see. One is the dilating. Second is the annual rotation of Earth. The third one is Earth behaves like a rigid body. As you know, all in rigid body dynamics, if you use a top and turn it, it turns about its axis, but the axis itself goes like this. Buguri. It simply moves like this. That movement takes 26,000 years. So in that 26,000 years, what happens? When you observe sun, he will be with different stars. So if you know with which star he was associated, now I have to escape this. I can go back to the slides. You can enlarge it. Yeah. So if I know with reference to which star the sun was there, some very interesting calculations can be done. What I have shown here in the other figure is about the pole star. Pole star is also mentioned. The present day pole star was not the pole star, Dhruva. Even in 1500 BC, there was no pole star. But the Vedic text mentioned about pole star, Puranas mentioned about Dhruva as the pole star, and is supposed to be at the end of a figure called a Shishumara, which is like a dragon or a whale, and the 14th star was called the Dhruva. It is there in all the Vishnu Purana, Brahmanda Purana, and also in a text called the Prof R N Iyengar. So if you can say today's pole star is here, 2000 AD, the ancient pole star, because there is no other pole star in between, was possible only in 3000 BC. So those texts, they may not belong to that period, but they remembered that somebody who was living in that period said that mantra, and they remembered, and they kept on repeating the same thing again and again and again, and preserved it to this day. This is possible if it is with reference to sun, when I can make use of the precision. Now the same thing happens also with reference to the solstices, because in the first slide I showed, the Maitrayana Aranyaka says, sun in this winter solstice is with the nakshatra half of Shravishta, it says. In the half position of Shravishta it is there. Later on, in one of the texts which I will show you right now, it says Shravishta beginning is the beginning of winter solstice. So if the movement is about half nakshatra, it's about 6 to 7 degrees. For each degree it will be about 70 to 80 years. So it will be about 500 years difference between these two observations. So if you know that, if they had observed sun with reference to seasons, because the season is with reference to sun even today, the equinox has to be when these two intersect. The winter will start on the solstice point, summer is starting at the summer solstice point. We know these things. And hence, with reference to the modern astronomy, I can go back and work out what might have been the period. But the nakshatras pose some problems, because the nakshatras are group of stars. I have put up a figure here. Rohini is actually made up of 5 stars, and it is called a Shakata. It is like a triangular card. And this is Ashlesha. Ashlesha is called a Sarpa. It looks like a hood of a serpent, and you can see that is how it looks like that. So these figures were also there, and these descriptions were also there. And if you construct the 27 nakshatras, the 83 stars, here's what you have done using some of the ancient texts, because they have given all the stars and all that. And quite interestingly, 2 of the texts which we have studied, one was called the Parashara Tantra, the other one is what we are right now editing, called the Vriddhagargya Jyotisha. They mention sun's nakshatra in the 6 seasons. It is the quote I have given. That will be like Shravishtadini Chatvari Paushnardhancha Divakara. When it is in the 4.5 stars, that will be the winter season kind of thing, because each Ritu will be 366 divided by 6, that will be 61 days, and 61 days in nakshatras will be 4.5 nakshatra stretch, that is the fact, because it is a 27. But these nakshatras, we don't know whether they were at equal distances. No, some of them are single, some of them are multiple, and but nevertheless, some of these can be identified in the sky today, even to this day. If you were careful, you can see that. Kritika you can easily see, Chitra you can see, Jeshta you can see, because they are bright stars. Rohini you can observe, and their name has remained same. But some names have got drifted, very difficult to identify. But with reference to this, if we do, we get a very interesting thing. We have constructed a table of these 27. The number of stars which in the ancient period they had, the Vedic text, the Jaina text, Surya Chandra Prakriti, the Bauddha text, Shardula Karnavadana, what they are given, and what are the modern stars with which I can associate, depending on the shape. They are given how it looks like. See, for example, Magha. Magha looks like an enclosure. It's like a room, he says. There are 6 stars, and the 6 stars will look like a room. If you see the previous figure, you will see it is like that. And similarly, if you see, there is one very interesting thing, that is elephant tusk, Gajadanta. That is Jeshta. This is Scorpio, what we call. Only 3 of the stars. That looks like a Gajadanta. And there is one more, Mula. Mula is called, even in the Vedic terms, it's called Vichirtau. Vichirtau means which is split like this. The scorpion tile is split, if you know that, So that is what they give. And the others called it scorpion tile itself. You find it busy. It is not a Western thing. Scorpio as a Rashi may be different. I am not talking of that. It is for only the star or the nakshatra, which is a group of stars. So a very interesting thing. Collecting this, I prepared the previous, that nakshatra mala, 27 nakshatras. Why we are doing this? I can now use my theory of precision, and the previous statements which are given in the Vriddhagarga Jyotisha, the seasonal stars, if they have to be in a particular season, all the 27, either, you see, that means winter means 270 degrees longitude, summer means 90 degrees longitude for the sun. If it is equinox or Vasanta means, at the center of Vasanta means 0, because equinox will be 0. These kind of things that has to remain same all through. The names may be different, the position has to be same only. And that I can use and find out these stars, how they have moved. Stars themselves don't move, but with reference to the ancient thing, due to precision, what might have been possible. So we have searched the period minus 2500, that's 2500 BC, up to about, actually up to 500 AD we have done that. What we find is, the error is minimum around 1300 BC. So this error minimization procedure, which all engineers routinely use it. There are various other error studies, sensitivity studies we have done, I'm not going to talk about it. Published this in the Indian Journal of History very recently. And this Vriddhagarga Jyotisha, as I said in the beginning itself, is orally transmitted. People might have added new things. You may question, there may be errors, there may be other things which are added. It has one chapter called the Aditya Chara, the 11th chapter, which gives this. There is another chapter called Ritu Swabhava, which is the 59th chapter. It gives some statements again about the Ritus. Ritus are the seasons. And if you use that data, I get this. So that is about 500 BC. So some additions have taken place in this manuscript. Around 500 BC, but still I can get a hold on it. It may vary 100 years this way, that way. And we also verified whether the nakshatras are, is the fidelity in that. I will not go into that details. Now, how much time I can take more? Another 10-15 minutes? Or?
Another 10-15 minutes. Another 10-15 minutes.
Okay, all right. Now, so far, we have considered only the long time. That is, day, month, year, samvatsara, and maybe even 1,000 years, 2,000 years from our perspective. But what happens within a day? Within a day also is time. Now, how do we handle it? Now, what has been done in this case is that a day is divided into 30 parts. Why 30? Why not something else? Reason being, moon, the month is 30 units, as a 30 tithi date. So 30 number would be helpful if they take 30 here also. In fact, there is a Vedic mantra in Shatabata Brahmana that the Prajapati wanted this, because the paksha is 15. So he wanted 15 as the number, his special number is 15. It cannot be 14, it cannot be 16, it has to be 15. So 15 means day is 15 muhurta, night is 15 muhurta. When if you define day as only the sunlight, only during the equinox it is possible. Because in equinoxial they are very near that, the day and night, the light and darkness are equal. But if you go towards the winter solstice, the nights are longer. By 6 muhurta they are longer. That comes up in the text. So it becomes longer. And if you go to the other end, the northern limit of sun, that is the summer solstice, day is longer by about 6 muhurta. And these people have measured somehow and mentioned all those numbers which are correct for something like 30 degrees north latitude. You can say Kurukshetra, some region, around that, Rajasthan, Kurukshetra region. These are all valid. We have verified that also. Of course, some of these are very mildly, so may not be precisely in Kurukshetra, but 100 kilometers plus or minus also they may be reasonably valid, because you need an error band always. Without an error band, these would become meaningless. Now, if you have 30 muhurtas, how do you measure it? Initially they said it's only with sun you can measure. In the Veda, it comes with sun when it rises, this is Prataha, then the Madhyandina, then Sangavas. Like that they made 5 divisions. They might have simply observed and come to that conclusion. But obviously for civil purposes that won't be sufficient. So they developed new things called different units called Nimesha. Nimesha is used even now. We say Nimisha in Kannada. But the meaning may be literally it is wink of an eye. That is one Nimesha. Then Asu is going to be the heartbeat or this beat here. Prana is the breathing. How many times we breathe. These 3 units were specially introduced for measuring time within a day. And there is so much of description on this, I can't go all of that. But they would have found it very hard to use it. Because you ask, how many times a wink can happen? And the rates are going to be there. In modern times they are measured, they have put up all of that. And if you want to say a heartbeat, within a day, the time transactions between you and me, I can't put my hand on your heart and keep on finding out what you are doing. If your BP is higher, you will get a different number. And if my thing is different, then what is it? We can't do that. So they invented actually a new method that also has come from the Vedic time, that is using akshara. That is use a phonetic scale which can be heard. And they calibrated also using this. They are wonderfully calibrated. That's what I will present in the next 5 minutes. Akshara means the following. Now Muhurta, as I said, 30. But we have already come to the modern period. When I talk about Akshara, the Purana period, not the Vedic period. Purana period will be about 500 AD, the Gupta period. And then Aryabhata, Bhaskara, Brahmagupta and all of it, 700 AD. Varaha, 500 AD, about 1500 years before. Still quite ancient. I can't imagine 1500 years before how things were. Now, these people introduced Akshara. Akshara means a syllable. If I utter a syllable, how much time it takes is the question. Anything? Mic is not there. Anyway, I think you are able to hear me. Anyway. Now it is working. Okay. So the akshara was a syllable. So the syllable concept comes from the Vedic period. Can't go into those details, even though we have worked on that. The people said in the Puranas, how many aksharas would be there in a muhurta? They counted and put up some numbers. For example, I have given here one muhurta. One muhurta will be 2 ghatika. If you want the modern Siddhantic astronomy, They divided the day into 60 parts instead of 30 into 2. There is no difference. They call it a Gatika or a Nadika. Why they differentiated between Gatika and Nadika is another matter. Now, Purana says 13,500 Lagbhag Aksharas make one Murta. Then there are Vikrita Akshara 16,000. Then there is 12,000 Akshara. But the Siddharthic astronomy people, Aryabhata, all Bhaskara, Brahmagupta, everybody said no. 7,200 Gurvakshara will be one. That is what they said. How they came to this conclusion? It would be very interesting. They used water clocks to measure that. Within a day, there are two kinds of water clocks. It's all civil engineers would be knowing. It's an outflow thing. Water will be flowing out of this tube. That is a Nadika. Nadika means a tube. Out of such a pipette or a cylinder, it is moving out. Initially, they were using this only to find out time, but you can't graduate it linearly. Reason is, velocity is v square will be equal to 2gh. So it won't vary linearly, but quadratically, markings will have to be done. This also they had known, they observed. They said no. Don't use such a uniform cell. The Jyotish Karantaka, which belongs to 100 AD, is a Jaina astronomy book. It says your Nadika should be like a pomegranate flower. It should be broad at the top and it should slowly reduce. Not linearly, but something like a logarithmic thing. It has to reduce. Then this will be linear variation. You know about logarithmic years. Yeah? So, this was also used for a long time, but the astronomers didn't like it. The later astronomers, for the same reason, very difficult, you have to design it in a particular way and all that. They developed another one. That is called, why should you have an outflowing yantra? You have something which would sink much better. It's like a ship or a boat. If there is a hole, it sinks. So you design it in such a way, it sinks. Now, how many times it has to sink? This is called a Gatika. Gatika means a gata. So, Nadika, Gatika value is same. 60 Nadika makes a Ahoratra. 60 Gatikas also make an Ahoratra. But Nadika is measured in a Nadika yantra. Gatika was measured only in a Gatika yantra. That's all. Both have the same. This is just a, you can see this one shown here. This is available in the museums to this day with chakra. We brought one from somewhere and tried this also. Either copper or this is only a coconut shell. It's a coconut shell is here in Madras Museum with one Gatika. It will sink exactly in one Gatika. One Gatika will be what? You have to find out that. They divided one Gatika into 60. Like a minute is divided into 60 seconds. Gatika is divided into 60 Vigatikas. Now, all these things, you know, as an instrument, man-made instrument, it is not God-made a natural instrument in the sky. They need calibration. Otherwise, they will go wrong. How do you calibrate? They use the Akshara for the calibration. The Puranas and others had given some numbers, but the astronomers said no. You have to see that once you do an experiment, maybe it will 60 times sink. Sunrise to sunrise, okay, but I can't, this is technology, because when you have to product 1,000 such things, you need a uniform standard. So how would I measure that? I can't wait for one day for that. I will save a short one and find out what it is. Like, you know, I have a tape, small 1 meter tape. Then I measure the whole thing by repeating. I can't have a single 100 meter tape and that has the unit. That was the concept here. And how do I do that? They suggested, Varahamira was the first one who suggested, he gave a shloka. He said, this contains 60 Gurvaksharas, 60 heavy syllables. You say this once, it will be one Vigatika. Finished. You repeat it 60 times, it will be one Vigatika. That was his argument. So they would have tried this and then come to this conclusion. No, the translation is there, I will not go into that. This was improved by a person called Bhaskara. Now I wanted to show this also. Let me see if I can run this. Oh, you have to minimize it and then run it. At least one I will show. See, we did an experiment on this. Minimize it. Yeah, this one. Okay, run. Can you hear the sound?
Connected ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ಬರಲ್ಲ.
You can't hear this, right? Okay. If I there's a video, but sound is not heard. Oh, okay. So you can see this took 23.7 seconds to utter this shloka with actual recordings there. Now can I go back? Anyway, I can't. We had one more. I will skip it. Yeah, we conducted an experiment by involving volunteers. We took up some 30 volunteers who come to our center for this kind of discussion, like what I am doing here, because of their own interest. We gave them the shloka. We asked them to record it themselves at home conveniently, as they would be telling during their puja or whatever, and tell us what is the time taken. So we got 30 samples for the shloka given by Varahamira. 30 samples were the one given by Bhaskara. This is Bhaskara, this is VMS Varahamira. And the average was 23.94. The other one was 23.6 seconds for uttering the shloka on the time. There's some standard deviation, which is a small thing. And in other words, if in the ancient time they could repeat with the help of students, remember the ancient schools, they were called Ghatika Sthana. Ghatika Sthana was a school. Why it was a school? In the Ghatika also it had a time measuring instrument it had. Probably the students there they maintained the Ghatika, and you can ask them to repeat the shlokas. Sometimes, then they would do that and they would know the time to calibrate it, that it has gone out and all that. And hence, using this system, you can have a watch as accurate as 24 seconds, or if you take one syllable, it is 0.4 seconds. Now, this kind of thing has been in vogue till about 19th century. Even when the British came to India, initially in the museum they used this, not the mechanical clock which were taken from Europe. Because of the temperature variation here, they were showing different periods. And in fact, in Kipling, Rudyard Kipling, the famous man, his father was maintaining the museum in Lahore. He used only the Ghatika Yantra, the sinking bowl. In many of the temples also we had this simple bowl. And the priest, they would carry this Ghatika with them. And there is also a version, particularly in the coastal region, the son-in-law should be presented with a Ghatika. Because he will come with a Ghatika to decide the muhurta for his marriage. At sunrise, he will set the Ghatika Yantra. So he will know how many Ghatikas it is happening. Even today, in the invitations, they put the muhurtas, ishtu galige, ishtu vigalige, salluva, inta muhurtadalli, inta lagnadalli, madhuve, they will say that. Now, see, the Ghatika you can count by sinking 4 times, 6 times. What about Vigatika? That is, the priest has to repeat that shloka. There are a set of shlokas which I didn't show. If the shlokas are repeated so many times, so many Vigatikas would happen. Then they will say Shubha Mangala Savadana or whatever, they will finish the thing. And it is said that, particularly in South, the habit of presenting a wristwatch to the son-in-law is because they are presenting a Ghatika. In the olden times, that has been replaced by a wristwatch. But anyway, that joke apart, I am coming to my summary and conclusion. So counting days by sunrise was the method. Month was by moon. mostly by full moon to full moon. But the most ingenious thing is a audible oral scale, not visible, but an oral scale. Katka sinking is visible, but this is a oral scale which in a particular, that is called a chandas. It is not possible with all chandas. It is called a Leela Kela meter. Only in the Leela Kela chandas, there will be 60 Gurvakshas. If you know Sanskrit procedure, you will know that there are hundreds of chandas with different Laghu and Guru kind of combination. But this is all are going to be Gurvaksharas only, heavy symbols only. Then it is going to be one Ghatika, that is going to be half of Muhurta. So one Muhurta is 48 modern minutes, but is 24 hours is one Ahoratra. 30 Muhurta is one Ahoratra, so the equivalent is 48 minutes modern. One Ghatika is half of it, is 24 minutes in present parlance. So we have verified the accuracy of this also in our center. And that shloka is there. Makante Pakshasyante Paryakashe. Not read it, it's a very humorous shloka. It says, this all has Gurvaksharas. The poet is telling his lover, who is sleeping outside in an open ground in the night. And he says that, beautiful looking lady, don't sleep outside. Because the Rahu will think your face is the full moon and he will catch your face. So you go inside and sleep. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Started a good thing.
Thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful talk. And we can have a few questions. If you have any questions, please, you can get the clarification from sir.
Sir, the Rahu Kala Apparala, sir. What is the significance of Rahu Kala?
I think it's a later introduction. I don't find any significance in the ancient
People
text.
say that don't do any work till Rahu Kala gets.
I know that. But in the ancient period, there was no such thing.
Any scientific significance for the Ekadashi?
Scientific significance for Ekadashi. I think for health purposes, I don't know any.
Nobel laureates proved that in a different way.
I don't know. In
But
this,
from literature, anything is there?
in the ancient literature, it is not. At least in the astronomical literature that we have studied, it is not.
Any mention about that particular lunar cycle thing they have found every 11th day?
Number 11 is there, but nothing specific.
No specific.
Those are modern, these are all modern astronomical.
There are some injunctions that what can be done, what cannot be done in a particular karana. I didn't go to the unit of karana. Karana will be half of tithi. So half of tithi, they had that karana concept now. It is given up. Okay, I think the Panchanga they have printed. They give some particular things. You can do this, you need not do this kind of thing. We have looked at it so carefully as to this question. I will not see. If there is anything, I will pass it on. But yatra and other things, when a person can travel, in which direction he can travel. And that even in the Vriddagarbhi, there are such things are there. Some portents, prognosis is there. General thing. When a function can be done, when you can go to meet the king, then you should not go. Such things are there. In a particular tithi, in a particular karma, and also how the muhurta has to match and all that. But Ekadashi, I haven't seen.
Sir, the ancient text also says that the lunar eclipse, it always occurs on full moon day, that too in the night. Is it true?
Sorry.
Lunar eclipse,
Huh.
it always occurs on the full moon day, that too in the night time. Is it true?
We know that lunar eclipse occurs only as full moon.
No, calculation. Is it matching the calculation as well as the theory? Is it both are matching?
Let me tell you this. We have there are so many folk things also which have come up, beliefs and all that. We are looking into the text specifically. After all, if the lunar eclipse has to occur only in full moon, that is mentioned. Even in the most 1500 BC text, it is mentioned. It is the Parva. Only it is the lunar eclipse which gains more attention than solar. They mention it occurs only on a Purnima day, the Parva. If they observe it, it has to be only the ninth. If it occurred in the other hemisphere, they will not know that. So they will say that it is in the ninth only. It has to do like that only, any observation. Later, mathematical calculations were done in the Siddhantic period. That is different because there can be errors in that because parallax, so many other parameters come into picture. So even then, they say that it was in error by about 2 hours, 3 hours kind of thing. It's considered very close. In the 17th century, it was considered very close. So calculation is different. I haven't touched on those things at all.
Sir, Uttarayana is actually on the 14th of January every year.
No?
No, that is Sankranti.
That Sankranti is different. Uttarayana is different. Unfortunately, they have mixed up the two. Even government of Karnataka, in their gazetted holiday list, they put Uttarayana, bracket Sankranti, and Uttarayana Punnakala, that's all. It's wrong because when the Panchangas have made the error, that is wrong. Makar Sankranti and Uttarayana coincided in about 250 AD. At that time, they were together. But after that, because of precision, it has to go over. Our astronomers knew the effect of precision, but the number was not very accurate. So over a period, the error builds up. So if you say that Makar Sankranti is important for me, you can celebrate a festival on January 14th, there is no problem. But if you say Uttarayana Punnakala is important for doing the Pitru Tarpana, then it has to be December 21st, not January. That is wrong. That is wrong. In fact, Balagangadhar Tilak and S.P. Dikshit, they have all written on that. And in the Tilak calendar from Pune, they mentioned that. That is the Uttarayana starts on December 21st. They give two different names, Vasanta Sampada, Shishira Sampada, they use that word and say it is on December 21st. So let us be clear on that.
Sir, two questions. One is according to physics, universe is expanding.
Sorry?
According to physics,
Ah.
universe is expanding.
Okay.
Because of that, the distance between the Earth, Moon, and other nakshatras and other things also will be varying. And because of that, duration of what we are calling one day or something, that duration also will be expanding. Is there any course correction being carried out?
No. See, it is like this. This expanding and all that, well, if it is the solar system we are talking, all of things will be going and expanding in something. So relatively it will be same. But it is the rigid body movement of the celestial mechanics, if you say, okay, there is perihelion, aphelion, these are all there. And the length of the day varies, the light varies, that's all known. The reasons might not have been known, but the effects are all known. And there is no concept of expanding universe or contracting universe in the ancient thing. If at all there is something, it is oscillating. It expands, contracts, that is the kind of concept which is there.
Second question.
Yes.
Now most of the, the time is change of the objects. So if you look at it, the one is about syllable, and second one is looking at astrological movements of the celestial objects. Those are being considered. Are there any studies on actually most organized ants and honeybees about counting the time? For example, syllable, based on that, we are taking the average and talking about nimisha and other things. Similarly, the movement of the ants is considerably constant across the world.
I haven't seen it these days. I haven't seen.
retrogression concept. Retrogression
Planet, retrograde movement of planets. Planets I didn't cover in this. Retrograde planets were no. This because of relative movement, when the speed of Earth and gas changes, it seems to me it is going back. Really, if you see, it is not happening. It is only an aberrant thing. That is how it is happening. But they mention about it because it was the Earth, fixed Earth concept which was there in the Siddharthic astronomy. They knew that, they calculated that. They gave information. So in observational astronomy text, it comes up, retrograde planet, particularly Mars, Vakra, it is there.
Okay, any questions?
Any relation with modern day time? Better they can
I didn't get it.
modern day time,
Huh.
minute, second,
Huh.
any relation they have established?
I told you already, 48 minutes is one muhurta, 24 minutes is going to be one ghatika. That is the relation. Then you can divide it. 24 seconds will be one vigatika. So that shloka will take 24 seconds or it will take one vigatika. So if you repeat it 60 times, it will be 24 minutes. That is the relation.
Okay, last question from students, if you have any. Anyone? Yeah, go ahead.
So you told that the specific nakshatra are related to any sun or moon to specify a month or something. So is there any particular nakshatra associated during time of Ashada and Shravana?
I didn't fully catch it because.
Repeat that.
Is there any
Or I will come there.
Hey,
any particular nakshatra related to Ashada and Shravana?
Particular nakshatra in months of Ashada.
Because those are considered to be very important.
It is a good question, no doubt. But all the 12 months are important. See, Shravana, the full moon generally occurs in the Shravana nakshatra. So Shravana nakshatra is considered, from the more ancient time, nakshatra for Vishnu. So that is why it is very important. So Shravana is very important. And it is the rainfall season. So people don't travel, they will be inside, kind of thing. That is how these months are recognized. Even the other months are Kartika is also important. Because the Purnima will be occurring in Kritika Nakshatra, near that. So it's a Kartika season. And there are other planetary combinations. It is covered that. So in the later period, they introduced planets also in the Puranic period. So if there is a combination of full moon with Jupiter, it's called a Mahakartika, and then some Vrata has to be done like that. Many of the fasting and Vratas, they come from the Puranic period because of such combinations.
Yeah.
Okay?